And then when you have gone through some of these kind of mental fitness exercises, then you may have a better understanding of the intention of companion as well. And then you can just go to the chat and say that, okay, I've been stressed recently, I have a lot of meetings, or yeah, I went through this challenging situation. And then you have a better understanding at that point how to kind of converse with companion in a natural way in the free-flowing part of companion.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining. I have Stefan Kløvning here with me. We'll be talking about his startup and involvement in Com 2.ai, and we can talk more about initiative of this project that he's deeply involved, as well as potentially some others as well. Hey Stefan, nice having you, man. How are you today?
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm doing excellent. A lot of exciting things on the agenda today and recently, and yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Nice having you for sure. So I was looking at like Com2. Do I go with Com2 or just say like companion? Like what's the proper way to go?
Companion is probably the right way to go because Companion is the product in itself, is the kind of AI solution that we built. Com2.ai is the name of the company and is the name of the URL. It's where people can try out Companion, but it's Companion that is kind of the brand name of this product.
Gotcha. So one thing that I like to start with in most of these cases when I interview people who are starting their business or running startups in general, or just like have a certain product that is tipping into existing or even creating new industry, and that's the problem, right? So there was a problem that you recognized and you thought, I can fix this, right? Can you tell me more about it?
Yeah, for sure. And there are a few different components to the problem at hand. Like one part of it is that what we've seen in the research, like official research that have been publicized about the effects of generative AI in the past couple of years, hasn't always necessarily been positive from a cognitive perspective. That in some cases, when using generative AI becomes kind of the norm, and that we're using this for everything that we're doing and not necessarily thinking of our own, it kind of hampers actual critical thinking and mental development in that regard. And that's part of what we want to see kind of uh, reverse in a sense, that we wanted to see how AI can be adjusted in a way that is not necessarily just supporting everything that you say, and not necessarily that it hampers what you are thinking and your cognitive development in that regard, but actually helps to promote your cognitive development and can also help whether that is in like critical mental health conditions, or if you're just a healthy individual who just wants to use AI to help you grow as a person, to help your mental development in general, that we've seen with a lot of the existing AI application that haven't really been sufficient for this means that we see in the research. So that was kind of the task we had before us, in the sense that we want to modify this kind of AI solution to be specifically for actually growing mentally, strengthening cognitive development rather than hamper it on the way.
Got it. And would you say, because yeah, actually, let's start with question, another one. So how populated is the market currently with tools like yours, but then different in the way that you just described it to me?
I would say that it isn't very populated from of serious actors, because what's important to note with the market, with know that everyone can basically vibe code applications. Of course, there are probably 10,000 different versions of someone who has made it on their own kind of initiative, but hasn't really publicized it or developed it to a significant degree. A lot of people have probably had the idea, but of people who have made serious companies for this, developed it to a real production-ready application and actually started marketing it to that extent, I haven't seen a lot of that in the market on like even globally. I've seen a few actors in the United States, especially in San Francisco. Of course, it's classic. In Silicon Valley, there are a few different versions. There are a few others in some other from some other places in the United States, including Florida. In If we are talking about the European market, the Nordic market, then I've seen one other alternative that has started working on this more seriously. They've gotten good funding of this in Denmark, which is basically Norway's neighbor, right? There's another I've seen in Norway as well. I don't think it's publicized yet, but they have gone into some research partnerships, some government sponsorships, and so on. So they have some good processes going on there. But yeah, we're talking about maybe like 10 to 20 like max serious actors that at least I'm aware of in this regard. And then in addition to those, there are a lot of others who haven't really kind of taken real holds in this market. And it's a real early market as well. That's another matter to be addressed. That is exploring really a new way to tackle an existing problem and also reverse a new problem that has come with the dawn of generative AI. So it's a new market, but an existing market in the same way, right? Which makes this makes the go-to-market perhaps a little bit different than traditional market entry in some ways.
Well, I mean, the interesting thing is that it's very old. Well, I actually wanted to say not very old market, but very old problem that's being that humanity tried to like propose a solution for only like what, like 70, 80 years successfully, maybe even less. And now we have this shift in technology that's actually allowing, people who would be using these kind of services to transition from, um old way. Well, I mean, I wouldn't like to. It's not old way. It's maybe more even humane way to do therapy, which is face to face. But then you're introducing something a bit different, and a lot of my questions actually are coming from this standpoint because I personally would love to have face to face interaction. So, which kind of brings me to one of my questions is like, how does your market slash ICP actually responding to your solution? Do you see a pushback? Do you see is there trust already established? How does that work?
Yeah, and that's where the market entry is a bit tricky because we've seen some positive elements and then we've seen some challenging elements as well. When we initially considered like the starting point of like mental health before we kind of pivoted to more focus on mental fitness, for instance, we see of course there is a massive challenge within mental health that must be covered, and we built the safety mechanisms kind of to address those. At the same time, it's challenging for many things, including the target market for those who struggle the most with mental health aren't really in the position to pay a lot, right? They don't really have the willingness to pay, and often not really open to trying out new technology or testing out these new matters as well. And then you have the geographic aspect as well. When we are based in Norway and focus specifically on Norway as a starting point, then we see that the market may not be mature enough, like in the B2C sense, for this solution. Then we're exploring a bit more alternatives, for instance, in the United States, which may be a little bit more mature to kind of technical adoption to these types of solutions. So my co-founder is going to Washington this summer to hold an event and present Companion there to explore a bit more into that market. So it's a little bit of a tricky situation there, both because of the kind of stigma
Yeah.
concerning mental health, and also that AI is a new technology that's coming into to a field that is very sensitive in general. And without kind of a big marketing apparatus to make a difference in that regard, that remains a challenge that
Yeah.
we're working through.
Yeah. So what's the most successful sales channel for you?
I would say that what has worked a lot recently, we have based on what the channels that we have before through Nordic AI, the business channels that we have there, it's been very helpful to use or what we traditionally use more in the B2B sense in LinkedIn, in our business network, and so on to build good partnerships and distributors through that matter. And also that we've started more with direct kind of B2C channels as well, like Instagram and TikTok. These are kind of the direct ways of reaching those who are more in the target audience for this. But I would say that we started off using the existing channels that we had through the B2B, and then started building more into the direct B2C through Instagram and TikTok from there.
Got it. And how important is the localization when it comes to products like this one?
Part of it is the trust aspect. I think especially when it comes to uh, like now that we're building in Norway, for instance, that it's of course, a lot of people, most Norwegians know a lot of English, so they can technically use applications like this. But the question then is whether it is sufficient that it's in English, that the user interface is in English, even if you can talk with the AI in Norwegian, ask it to talk Norwegian. If the user interface or the landing page isn't in Norwegian, then it may be like, okay, just another of these tools, right? So it's kind of a uh, there are I think there still are a few kind of stigma concerning kind of international applications in this regard, and if everything is in English, then it may be a barrier for someone that it's more challenging to build the trust if it isn't in their target language. So causing it to that okay, it should be in Norwegian if we're targeting the Norwegian market. It should be in like some of these the languages of the target markets specifically for dedicated to them. Then before in addition to having the general English version from what I see, the localization when it comes to language is the first critical matter, and then of course the cultural differences are possibly a bigger challenge on top of that. How do we adapt to different cultures, different kind of societal expectations in different cultures, in different markets as well when we're trying to get into new markets with different cultures for this. So that's another kind of challenging aspect concerning, especially concerning the marketing of solutions like this, not just the actual kind of technical implementation of it.
Yeah. So then if you're thinking about penetrating some other market, you would have to think about all these aspects of what one. I'm guessing here that you would go from what one psychotherapist would actually have to look like. Models would have to possess all the skill sets and abilities to adapt to conversation that they have with their patients. So then you have to mimic all of that for different markets, essentially, because I'm guessing language only, and you mentioned quite a few others, but I mean, language only is kind of the big thing. We are both communicating in English right now, but a lot of words that we would want to say in our native languages would, if it, I think we would be more precise because in translation there's always something that's it's not lossless, right?
Yeah, absolutely. What is interesting about uh, this kind of use case of AI as well is that like even though there may be a little bit of different approaches between different kind of psychologists and therapists in different countries, generally speaking, they're applying the same kind of psychological research and frameworks uh, frameworks to build their practice and build their methods on. And that's kind of what we can see here, that when we're building solutions like this, that we can build it based on the same research, based on the same frameworks that practically are unanimous, or at least uh, there's some degree of consensus in that community to build on those frameworks. And then when our AI is framed around this methodology, then that is the base framework it can work pretty effectively on. And then it's basically adjusting it to different languages, and preferably also cultural elements. Then it's a process to make it incrementally more adapted in that sense, but the core foundation in a sense is in place, that covers most of the needs for the use case, and then on top of that you adjust based on what you can.
That's actually something I wanted to touch base on. So there's like a handful of different models, let's call them frameworks or methodologies.
Mm.
You mentioned cognitive behavioral one, but what's the MVP under quotes for your product to say you have a product that's ready for market use? It's like, what are all the methodologies that you would have to be able to cover with your product to be successful, to at least to start, using it? Or we can also frame this question as like, how many different methodologies should one psychotherapist know before they start seeing patients, right? So that's the connection I'm trying to make with your product.
So what we did in the end of last year was adapt to a new peer-reviewed study, or actually a meta-study that came out from the United States by some researcher on basically healthcare. What these researchers did was they reviewed the research on AI connected to these kind of healthcare related chatbots, basically AI related AI-related chatbots, to see, okay, how can we build a general framework for how, like, what factors should be involved in the evaluation of these types of AI chatbots that are to be applied for these purposes. And then then they provided a lot of different factors and dimensions to address regarding safety and privacy, and a lot of other factors involved in that. And that was what made us revise a lot of the instructions and the promptings in our model and the way we're setting up Companion. We saw this framework as basically as a great tool for us to build and to modify Companion around. That we saw, okay, if we just take all of these findings from this entire framework, then, and put this into how Companion is built up, then we have a lot of then we can cross a lot of these boxes from the get-go, essentially. And then so when we started with that, it provided a very good foundation to start off with. And then based on that, we started doing some specific modification concerning right, the most critical kind of mental health cases, such as, okay, if you identify some cases of kind of suicide ideation, or like similar, like very critical mental health condition, if it indicates any signs of this, it has to follow a very strict process there. It has to acknowledge the challenge, but it should refer to an actual human mental professional, right? And these are
So
the
there
kind
is
of
an
issues.
escalation point.
Yeah, the critical escalation point, right? And these are the kind of absolute minimums that you have to address, both from a safety and legal perspective, when you're building these solutions. And probably also a factor involved in why there aren't a lot of alternative, like serious actors in this field, is because there are some risky elements concerning this with the most critical cases. That's what we focused on building very firmly from the beginning, so that it doesn't so as to minimize the risk for the user, and to make sure that they can clearly understand what is this tool for? What isn't it for? Like this is not to like prescribe treatment or prescribe medication or like handle those more extreme critical cases. It can help provide some clarity. It can help with like addressing certain issues with whether that's stress or mild depression or like some anxiety or something for some more acute matter, but for more serious long-term effects or very extreme cases, then like AI is like still isn't designed for this, and that's what we're trying to be very clear in the user interface as well. Okay, this is what it's for, and this is what it isn't for.
Got it. So what did you have in mind um, when you designed guardrails that would keep it, focused on specific areas maybe, or just uh, functionality slash methodology overall, and not to go and suggest certain things? Because I know this area is quite regulated, so you have to, be careful about whether companion is suggesting me to do some things in my problematic, I don't know, topic that I'm discussing with it, and then the results of that suggestion would be catastrophic for me, for example. So with all the regulations and needed guardrails, how did you approach in designing these guardrails for it?
So we have a pretty elaborate structure in the way we've both prompted and quality assured Companion in general. So like part of it is, of course, like a very thorough description of what it's supposed to do, what it isn't supposed to do, a lot of the different dimensions and factors involved from the HiCAP framework, from the systematic framework from published in November. And then on top of that, some of the things we've uh, added, such as the kind of escalation points, what are the kind of both explicit and implicit signs of different kind of mental health crises, what type of keywords, what type of key phrases should it look for both explicit and implicit terms, like because here is like when it comes to kind of implicit signs of such mental health crisis, it's a bit more tricky than actually just identify. It isn't necessarily that the user says that, okay, I'm going to commit suicide, right? For instance, it may be that, okay, I'm considering ending it, or like I've prepared so and so for so and so, right? And that's those kinds of signs must be uh, evaluated up against the framework as well as potential implicit signs of these
M-
mental health crises.
Makes sense,
So,
but
uh,
that's an extreme, right? I'm more
yeah,
interested in those in the middle. Like for example, it can tell me, hey, you have to live free and go and I don't know, quit your job and move to Iceland.
right. And here is where we've set it up so that it's the focus is self-reflection, that it helps you actually dig deeper into what you actually want, what you actually think will be for the best. We've set it up systematically so that it will ask questions first rather than making simple assumptions. And that's where it differs as well from a lot of these other models with the way it approaches the interaction in general, that instead of just okay you're supposed to give a helpful answer, or like it's supposed to seem like a helpful answer when it comes to these other models, then it focuses on okay, what do you actually want, what is actually meaningful in this and for the best in the long term, and based on what you actually want and strive for, right? Because for instance, some of the research that also has come out from OpenAI and these others, like general GPT providers, is that the reasons a lot of these models hallucinate so much and become very convincing is that they're basically designed or they're rewarded as exam takers, right? When you're taking an exam and you don't know the answers, you not only guess, but you write it in a way that seems convincing to the one who are actually evaluating and checking off everything, right? And you get rewarded for how well you manage to convince them that you know the answer and that you at least approach the right answers instead of just writing blank or instead of just writing I don't know. And that's the way these models are trained and rewarded as well. Um, for the most part. And that's where it has been critical to turn this around. That instead of just making assumptions and doing this, you should ask more questions because it's not an exam scenario; it's a real life scenario where you actually need to know as much as possible about the situation and about the person and about the user before you provide meaningful answers to relevant questions, relevant replies to guide them to kind of discover the truth and discover the answers for themselves, ideally.
Yeah. And at some point, you switched to Anthropic from OpenAI, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, that's correct. So there were several reasons why we did this. Mostly this was in the turning point around the kind of situation with Pentagon when Anthropic basically said to Pentagon and the Department of War that, okay, you can use our models for a lot of things, but when it comes to fully autonomous weapons and mass surveillance of the American population, then it may cross the line, right? And what Pentagon and State Department of War did from there was basically blacklist them, right, and say that they were a supply chain risk just because they didn't let their models be used however they want, and that was a kind of a turning point for us and for probably a lot of many other AI vendors as well. That they saw that okay, if OpenAI is willing to do these like really shady things and Anthropic aren't, then Anthropic will probably be the best to go with when it if this is to be considered kind of a turning point in the history of AI, you could say. And also in general, like it would be one matter if like Anthropic was far behind on the quality, but it really wasn't. Like when we were using Anthropic, it was far ahead of the quality for most of the things. And Anthropic is now what we're using in Companion, with the exception of the voice model where Anthropic doesn't have one. Um, but for chat and for coding and for a lot of these other matters, we see so far ahead quality with Anthropic. And when we tested, when early on in the transition phase, when we tested Anthropic as an API up for Companion versus OpenAI, we actually saw more kind of human empathetic kind of responses and like more of what we were looking for in Companion when we're using Anthropic as the AI provider instead of OpenAI. So then we thought that, okay, we just go full in with Anthropic. Like there's like basically no negatives with this. We just use OpenAI just for the voice part for taking up voice and transcribing. But other than that, all the AI generation is through Anthropic from there.
Mm. What was hardest thing to build
The hardest thing with Companion.
with Companion? Yeah.
Hmm. There, it's it's been an interesting journey last year when we're building this because it's probably the interesting part has been the transition from outsourced development to internalized development, I would say, because for much of the beginning of last year, we externalized the development to someone else. They started working on developing some of the framework for this, but this was very expensive and it took a very high burn rate with very minimal revenue streams. And when we eventually saw that, okay, we need to become kind of more self-reliant in here, like we can't really focus so much on having other people do this for us. We need to do this ourselves. And then we saw what was coming out from Cloud Code or GitHub Copilot and these other kind of AI assisted um, AI assist kind of coding tools, and then just learn to use those really effectively, and that made us able to kind of internalize the development and actually make a lot more progress that way. So I would say this journey of Companion has been partly from externalized development to internalized development, and that now also characterized the way we for not only build Companion but also build other projects through Nordic AI for other business clients and so on. So that's kind of internalization of knowledge and of knowledge of building applications and the skills for that. I would say that that was the most critical element.
By the way, if it's not a secret, where did you outsource your engineering to?
Uh, there were a few there were some developers in the Balkans that
Hmm,
we had on the matter. It was through another Norwegian also Norwegian
I see.
IT company who sourced from Balkan.
Got it. Got it. Cool. And then what was the best moment? Right now, you have like uh, you build you build a lot in-house. You build a product that's already being presented, and you're onboarding customers on it. So at this point, you can like like do a summary of everything that's happened. So what was the best moment while building Companion?
Well, the most rewarding moments are when we see new users and when we're getting feedback on it, when people are actively engaging with it and seeing that, okay, here like I like these things, or here are some things that may need to be fixed, may need to be updated, but at least getting users engaged on this and actually use and seeing value from the platform, actually getting into the habit of using it and seeing the value from it and giving us feedback from there, because I think that is one of the most critical turning points in building B2C applications like this, is actually getting the users so engaged that like even if something doesn't work, they don't go to think that, okay, yeah, but this sucks, then we go over to the next. They actually provide the feedback. They reach out to us and say that, okay, I love Companion, but so and so needs to be updated, or I would like this extra feature or this extra feature, right? I think when we started getting more feedback, direct feedback like that was probably the most rewarding thing for me.
Yeah, makes sense. At the end of the day, that's why we are doing this, like for
Mm,
the end user. So
yeah.
yeah, I can see that. Cool. So let's talk just a little bit at least about how does one session typically look like. Um, so if someone's watching or listening to us right now, they can probably they're already imagining if they can sit and talk with AI. So how does the session look like? Is it something that hmm. Actually, what I want to ask is um, the feeling and the overall atmosphere that you're delivering alongside the models that are capable to help me out with my whatever problem is that I want to discuss with AI therapist. But most importantly, what's the like audio slash video or visual component of it? Like, how does that look like typically?
So I can here distinguish between two parts of the platform, because we have the chat part and then we have the mental fitness exercises. So with the chat part of Companion, that's more like the kind of free-flowing part of the application. It's kind of, okay, if we're using ChatGPT or Claude, basically, it's kind of freestyle text. And that, of course, can do a lot because we have all of the kind of AI set up and adjusted in the backend. But it may, for new users, then it may be confusing. Okay, where do we start here? What do I say on that matter? So that's kind of why we created the mental fitness exercises as well, which was more kind of a guided process for this experience to at least get started with it. And some of the things we set up there was that, okay, it can be breathing exercises with proper visuals, proper kind of audio connected to that with right frequencies, and like a full kind of meditative experience concerning that, for instance. And then we have another which is more kind of resilience check. Okay, you went through a very difficult process recently, which challenged you a lot, but you got through it, you got better, and like a more kind of session to address that kind of transformation or that kind of experience, and addressing some questions from there, evaluating your feelings and the way you overcome that type of situation. So through these kind of mental fitness exercises, we have kind of more guided sessions. You're going through step by step with specific questions for this process, and that's to address whether it is stress or a challenging situation or some other issues on the way. And uh, yeah, the way we intended to set that up, and that we set up from there, was that you're supposed to have a better self-understanding and a better reflective experience of uh, from there. You have a better understanding of the emotions, better understanding of your thoughts concerning both your current situation, the things that are ahead, and the things that have been in general from there. And then when you have gone through some of these kind of mental fitness exercises, then you may have a better understanding of the intention of companion as well. And then you can just go to the chat and say that, okay, I've been stressed recently, I have a lot of meetings, or okay, I went through this challenging situation. And then you have a better understanding at that point how to kind of converse with companion in a natural way in the free-flowing part of companion.
Can I customize the tone of communication?
Uh, it is set up so that you can, if you want to modify the tone of the situation, you can inform through the companion chat that it's that you want a different communication tone. I believe that is possible. It hasn't been set up yet so that this is kind of a systematic part in the settings, but yeah, you can inform that you want a different communication style, and then it will remember
Yeah.
that for future sessions.
I keep seeing these virtual agents popping up recently. I was like a few months ago, I was looking for a lead gen agency, and I was doing the research, like what's new in the AI front of this particular segment. And I found I totally forgot to prepare to send you a link. I'll do that after the call. It's really interesting. There's the company already like deep into this. They are doing this thing with how you call them virtual assistants, but with complete visual entities, identities created, right? So they when they do video calls, you can literally see like generated person talking to you, and I mean you kind of can tell it's AI, but it's really good actually. So
Mm.
is this something maybe you can see your product drifting towards?
Possibly, but we do see a few risks involved with that as well in regards to dependency, right? Because the more kind of visual it becomes, the more kind of engaging it becomes in that way. It may have a side effects of making people more addicted essentially to
Hmm.
using AI specifically for these purposes, right? What we're trying to build with Companion is a way that, okay, it can help out with self-reflection, it can help out with promoting human connection. And if we're making it too easy to talk with AI for everything, and that it has the visuals and everything, then there is a risk concerning over
Hmm.
dependence of AI in that sense, in that goes contrary to our kind of mission statement of making people like more engaged and more reflected and actually promoting human connection rather than dampening it. And what we're seeing with Replica, for instance, who are doing a lot of these things, is that they're being heavily criticized for exactly this, right?
Hmm.
And we're seeing things come out. that this is basically the consequence when you're going too heavy in the video generation, and that it looks like a human, but it isn't really a human in this phase. So it's a challenging matter because yes, it can possibly help assist with some parts of the experience, but there's a risk of that this leads to too much overdependence of the AI, which also would be contrary to the mission.
I see. Interesting. Didn't think about it that way. Thinking as a consumer at this point, and it kind of makes sense to, see who I'm who I'm talking to.
Mm.
Okay, so what's when talking about we mentioned and I kind of understand your ICP, but do you already have a clear picture of like when you're doing your marketing campaigns and when you do your sales pitches, like who's your ICP, who's your ideal customer? I mean, it's really difficult to even call them customers because, when people have a need such as this one, it's not really a customer. They're obviously patients. But then again, you're not certified therapist. It's an AI product. So, you know, so yeah,
Yeah, so
essentially, who's the ICP? Yeah.
yeah, in terms of the marketing, then we're seeing like mainly ages like 20 to 45 when we're more filtered down, 20 to 35, like young adults, young individuals who like are generally targeting people who are healthy but like these tools and digital applications that help them grow in their everyday lives, right? For instance, I'm using a lot of these applications, like not necessarily for mindfulness, but learning mathematics, learning programming, and learning communication style, and writing and grammar and these other tools. Like, so basically, healthy young adults. Who strive for this kind of mental development, self-improvement and have the kind of psychographic aspects that okay they are healthy and they are well, but they want to grow even further and improve themselves on the journey, and that this AI tool can be a part of that kind of self-development journey.
You know what they say? It's like the healthiest people actually go to therapy. So,
Yeah.
right. So throughout this process of building Companion, can you name a few things that were aha moments? Like you learned something you didn't really expect to appear as a new skill or knowledge.
Part of what was interesting on this journey was learning much more about the compliance and security elements when setting up an application like this, and especially for the compliance aspect, both from a user safety perspective and from a legal perspective, learning more about the kind of regulative frameworks around this, both in Norway and in Europe, and also to some degree in other markets as well, and making more sure that okay, how is the data managed? How is like different aspects of this actually addressed from either kind of user notices, either that it's set up well in or privacy statement or terms of service, that we have like thorough and kind of solid paperwork concerning this, but also updating or like technical systems for addressing this were kind of when exploring this more and more on the journey, we saw some more like heavy elements for like a young startup to address, right? Like the things that typically the bigger organizations have like legal departments dealing with, right? Or like full kind of technical divisions customized for specialized in addressing these matters from a technical perspective, but that's with what we have of technical ability right now when using these kind of AI assisted tools, but also having the domain knowledge to know that these matters need to be addressed, then this domain knowledge and these kind of AI assisted or AI assistant tools for development and for coding can be used together well with addressing the gaps on the way.
Did you hear about the development methodology called dark factory pattern?
No.
It's actually a pretty interesting one. Just recently, I kind of I heard about it and started digging more into it. Uh, Essentially, the whole idea about dark factory comes from like early science fiction novels, like
Mhm.
50s. And I think the first time that it was actually described in the actual novel, or what was it? A short story, I forgot. It was called the Autofac, like automatic factory. And it tells about these automatic factories that existed. The story is, by the way, from the 1955. It tells about some futuristic war that happened, and it led these automatic factories stranded from the rest of the humanity, but they were in charge for like delivering food, clothing, and everything that humanity needed to be, to survive essentially. But then the war demolished like communication devices and networks and everything. So factories continued working, but people didn't need them anymore, right? So then
Mm.
there was a challenge like how to communicate with the robot to explain to it that it's not needed anymore. But then we have this AI era right now where we have, and I think most of the service companies like mine is right now, they're adopting this model, and it essentially what it is you don't have team of engineers anymore. You have one or two people who are describing the end product in such detail that you can actually give it to machine like AI system, and it will then decompose it into different sub-projects and tasks, and it will assign to itself, and then it will enter the loop back, right? So whenever, let's say, the backend code is developed, then QA set of AI agents will check the quality and whether it does what it needs to do and so on, and it goes around for like backend and front end and design and everything. And then at some point in the end, you will get the actual results. So you have zero people working on the product. You have zero people doing the QA, like anything, right? And it's becoming a thing, especially as I said in service industries. But for example, Cloud Code, I think, wrote 90% of the code for itself.
100%.
Oh, it's already on 100%, right?
Yeah.
This was research I read like a few months ago. So
Mm.
it's already 100%, right?
Yeah.
Interesting. There you go. So um, yeah, we are going in like direction that it's hard to anticipate even month to month anymore. It's crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's still a role for human parts, for the human aspect of development in this. That's why when I talk a lot publicly about AI-assisted development, that compliance and security are more important than ever. Of course, if you're doing a hobby project by yourself, only you are supposed to use it, it has no meaningful kind of integrations or anything, then the risks aren't very high concerning kind of from a cybersecurity or a compliance aspect. But if you're connecting this up to a business or have external users who are supposed to pay for it, or is treating personal information under GDPR, or it treats sensitive business information, then that's matters where you have to take the application more seriously and see, okay, how can you actually build up and actually test quality control what you're building in this way. And that's where I see still a bit more of a human component involved. There needs to be some kind of human testing. Like, of course, you can set a like testing threshold of what you're building, then it automatically upon build tests through that process. Like I've set up a library of Claude skills to basically do some security checks and all of these kind of checks myself. Even when it goes through all of that, I still need to review and check that, okay, is this actually working properly? Right. So there's still a role of that. How long that will last is another question.
Well, that's the
But
thing. That's exactly the thing. You can't really,
mm,
if we want to enter into discussion like how long it will last,
Mm.
Whether it'll last forever or just like, months or years that are in front of us, then there's a lot of variables right now. It's like
Yeah,
everything's
and
moving so fast.
yeah, and another issue to remember as well is the reliability standpoint. If ChatGPT goes down or Anthropic or Claude goes down, then okay, what do you do in that regard, right? Okay, Claude went down yesterday, for instance. Then Claude design goes down. Okay, how am I supposed to do my presentation? It has my presentations and everything. Or like Claude Chat goes down. Okay, how am I going to build and do research on this and this? Right? So like there needs to be a kind of serious kind of consideration and discussion also around the kind of resilience and like what do you do if like one of these services you're relying on goes down? Do you have kind of do you have backups essentially? Like okay, if Claude goes down, do you have a backup to OpenAI or to Gemini or like one of these other models? And uh, and seriously addressing these matters as well because it's happening. We see it with Claude, we see it sometimes also with OpenAI and these other models. The bigger they get, the harder it is for them to maintain this kind of compute on their servers, even
Yeah.
when they're like some of the biggest AI providers in the world. So we can't just expect them to kind of last forever or reliably all the time either.
Yeah. It's actually crazy how many people, just how few actually people are thinking about this in a way that, and even you right now, I think you didn't mention one important thing, and that's uh, one part of the plan for resilience against the thing we just talked about is on premise.
Mm.
You can always do that. It's under your control, and aside from internet connection, nothing can happen to it. We actually just had a client few months ago. Their setup required this, so we did that, right?
Yeah.
And it's not that elegant under quotes way because it's not in the cloud. You don't have all the benefits that AWS or Azure or GCP is giving you. That's true, but
Mm.
then control wise, you're covered, right? So
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, the challenge is that then you can't use the private models, right? You have to rely on open source and possibly also train and evaluate and develop these models yourself to some degree. And yeah, there are some good models on the market on the open source basis. But yeah, it is more development work concerning it. But for those who have those security requirements, then
yeah,
it's the natural solution.
right, right. Cool. Before we wrap up, are there any books that you can maybe recommend, like books that changed the way you do business, or just like, books that made a huge impact in your professional, personal life?
I would say that one book, I think I actually have it here, is concerning software, and it's called the Solution Architect's Handbook. So when I was insourcing a lot of the development, then this was a critical book for me to learn how like enterprise-ready software is supposed to be built, all like beyond just getting the solution to work, considering the scalability, consider the reliability, consider compliance, consider security, then this book, Solutions Architect's Handbook by yeah, some Indian names I can't pronounce, but a very great handbook for anyone who wants to learn kind of software development or who wants to become like not just a good vibe coder, but a great vibe coder, and also address actually building scalable and enterprise-ready applications. Then this one is absolutely critical.
Nice. Thanks for that. And in 5 to 10 years from now, where do you see Companion?
Ideally, I would like to see that it becomes the standard for kind of AI assisted like mental health, mental fitness in addressing how AI can be used as a positive way in this sense that is taken both in the Nordics, some degree also in Europe and the America. We see the market has matured a lot more for this type of development, and that we see a lot of partnerships with like both therapist associations and healthcare institutions for using this kind of technology specifically in assistance with like good relation between humans or human professionals and AI in how the future of mental health and future of mental fitness will be done.
Perfect. Sounds awesome to me. And if people want to reach out to you, talk about your product or just in general get in touch with you, what would you say the best places are?
A great way to connect with me is on LinkedIn. So just connect with me on Stefan Kløvning on my LinkedIn. You can also reach out to me on my email, Stefan at nordicai.net. And otherwise, you can always check out our website for companion, com2.ai, and our Nordic AI website, nordicai.net.
Perfect. Thanks so much for this information and for just telling us about Companion as a product and as an idea overall. I think a lot of people would actually resonate with the story and with your mission. Thanks for your time, man. Much appreciated.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Likewise.